Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Thursday. Let's crack on with some maths, starting with our Fab 4. So for today, we're looking at calculations where we've got a missing number in the first part of our number sentence. So, for example, number 1 says 480 divided by something gives us an answer of 80. So you're going to have a go at thinking about how can you calculate these. For some of them, you might need to use the inverse operation. For others, you might want to think about drawing some bar models to help you. So pause the screen, give yourself 4 minutes and come back for the answers. Okay, so let's have a look. Question number 1, 480 divided by something gives me 80. Well, the way that I thought about this was I thought, well, the opposite of division is multiplication. And I'm also going to think about known facts. And I'm going to try and make it a bit simpler. I'm going to divide both of these by 10. So it's 480 divided by something is 8. Well, I know that 6 times 8 equals 48. This is a known fact I can use to help me. So surely 6 times 80 is going to equal 480. So my answer must be 6. Now for question 2, again, I use the inverse. 13.2 divided by something gives me 0.132. Now, I felt it was a bit of a giveaway because all the digits, apart from the added 0 in the ones column, are the same. So I must be divided by 10, 100, or 1,000. So I could draw a place value chart, look at how many times it's moving, or I could think, what do I need to multiply 0.132 by in order to get 13.2? Well, I can see that everything has moved 2 places larger. Therefore, I must have multiplied by 100. So to get this answer this way round, I must have divided by 100, and that would be my answer. Now, 20% of something is 24. Now, from when we did this a few weeks ago, in my mind, I'm going to remember 20% was the same as a fifth. So I find for these sorts of questions, it would be really helpful to draw myself a little bar model, and I would divide it into fifths. Okay, now I know that 20% or 1/5 has a value of 24. Now to find out the whole amount, because it's 20% of what have I got to do here? Well, really I know there's 5 parts, so I've got to do 24 and I've got to multiply that by 5. So I could either do it in my head, might be able to do it. If not, I could do quick column method. 5 fours are 20, 2 times 5 is 10, add 2, gives me an answer of 120. Now finally then, number 4, 2/5 of something is 30. Now again for this one, I would use the bar model because it's 2/5. So I know the denominator is fifths, 5. I've got to divide my bar model into 5 pieces. Now from the information I've got, it's telling me that the total of 2/5 comes to 30. So I think, well, what is then 1/5 going to be worth? Well, I can divide the 30 by 2, can't I? Because that's half of it. It's going to give me 1/5. So half of 30 is 15. So I know 1/5 is 15. So what's the whole amount? I've got to multiply 15 by 5, which would give me an answer of 75. So 2/5 of 75 is 30. Okay, well done. So, Walt and Will for today. Now, we're going to be learning today about not just metric measures, which are the kilometres. We're going to be converting them into imperial measures, miles, which are something that we see on our signposts in the UK. But if we go out to Europe and other countries, they don't use miles for their distance, they use kilometres. Now, so we're going to learn how to convert between those 2 different units of measure, mainly for distance, and we're going to use bar models and graphs to help us with our calculations. So here's our discover for today. You can see that Jen and Toshi, I think, are in France going on holiday, and they can see the signposts are in kilometres. Now, Toshi said, I'm used to signposts that show miles, not kilometres. How am I going to know how far we're going? Now, fortunately, Jenna said, well, I know that 8 kilometres is the same as 5 miles. That's a really important piece of information for our lesson today. So we're going to remember that. Now we're going to have a look at then, how can we convert these distances to the Petite-Ville and Grande Montagne into miles? Now remember what Jen said, 8 kilometres is the same as 5 miles. So every time they're driving 8 kilometres, they've driven 5 miles. Now we're going to have a look at the Petit-Ville distance first. Now that's 16 kilometres. Now I know that 16 is the same as 8 times 2. So 2 lots of 8 kilometres. So I can look at it like this as a bar model. I've got 8 kilometres twice. So that means I've got 8 kilometres was 5 miles. So 16 kilometres must be 10 miles. I've got 2 lots of 8 kilometres. So I've got 2 lots of 5 miles. The other way of thinking about it is that if I divide my 16 kilometres by 8, it gives me 2. Okay, I've got 2 lots then. So then I've got to multiply my 5 miles by 2 to give me 10 miles. So that's just a way to look at it in a calculation form rather than the bar model. So here we've figured out that the Petit-Ville is 16 kilometres, which is the same as 10 miles. Now, if we were to have a look at the distance to the Grande Montagne, that's 40 kilometres. And let's have a look again to start off with a bar model. Now, I know that for 8 kilometres, I've gone 5 miles. Now, I've got to think about how many sets of 8 kilometres and 5 miles have I got to do? Well, I think really I would think, well, 40 kilometres, if I divide that by 8, how many groups of 8 have I got? Well, I've got 5, haven't I? Because 40 divided by 8 is 5. So that means you can see on this bar model that I've got 5 sets now of 8 kilometres showing 5 miles, 8 kilometres, 5 miles. So I can see that I've divided 40 by 8 to give me 5 groups. So then I have to multiply my 5 miles by 5 to then know how many miles 40 kilometres is the same as. So here it is in a calculation. I've done 40 kilometres divided by 8, gave me 5. Then I've got to multiply that 5 by the 5 miles to know what that converts up to in groups of 5 miles. So the Grande Montagne is 25 miles away. Now this is a really important bit of information for this, because what we can do, we're going to use the fact that 5 miles is about 8 kilometres to make a conversion table, because then we can find lots of different facts. So you can see here, this is a conversion table, and it's showing that when I travel 5 miles, that's the same as 8 kilometres. When I travel 10 miles, that's the same as 16 kilometres, 15 miles, 24 miles, and so on. So what you can see is that the miles is going up in our 5 times table, and next to it, the kilometres is going up in our 8 times table. So that's showing for, if I wanted to say, right, I've driven 25 miles, how many kilometres is that? I can think, oh, I'm going to go over to my table, right, it is 25 miles, the conversion is telling me that's 40 kilometres. I could keep it going, couldn't I? Because I could say, right, but if I've got 35 miles now, I need to go up by another 8 kilometres. So another 8 on from 48 would give me 56 miles. Now we could also put this into a line graph, which would look like this. Now this can be helpful for if we want to know the number of miles in between the sets of the 5s. So I wanted to know 2.5 miles. So I can use my graph because I know that's half of 5, which goes up here, which then shows how many kilometres it is, and that would be 4. And I could use my graph then to think, well, if I'm going in between these amounts, can I use that to help convert either into kilometres or miles, or vice versa? So this is what's called a conversion table and a conversion graph. It just sometimes makes our work a little bit quicker. So let's have a look at this in our thing together. Now, the airport, they're saying, is 56 kilometres. Now, 56 kilometres, the kilometres is what's going up in our 8s, isn't it? That's what we've got to remember. Now, this is saying how many miles away is the airport. So I've got to think, well, how many groups of 8 kilometres have I got? Once I've figured that out, I can then know how many groups of 5 kilometres I need to calculate. So obviously I'm going to do 56 divided by 8, and that's 7, isn't it? So I've got 7 groups of 8 kilometres, which I can see here. Now, rather than drawing out then 7 sets of 5 kilometres, I can just think, well, if I then take that 7 and multiply it by my 5, which gives me 35, that's telling me that the airport is 35 miles away. So on our sign, when I'm saying airport 56 kilometres, I know that that is the same as 35 miles. So if I'm starting with kilometres and I want to turn into miles, I've divided by 8 and then multiplied by 5 to give me the number of miles at the end. Now, in the other way round here, this is telling us that the railway station is 65 miles away. Now, we want to now know what the sign would say in kilometres. So it's the other way round, isn't it? Starting in miles. So I've got to do 65 divided by 5, so I know how many groups of those 5 miles I've got. So 65 divided by 5 is 13. And now I want to turn it into kilometres. So for every 5 miles, I've got 8 kilometres. So I need to take my answer of 13 and multiply it by 8. Now, I might think, oh, I can't remember my 8 times table. Remember to use the other methods that we know. Use a written method if you need to. Do a quick long longish, not proper long, but long multiplication. 13 times by 8. 8 times 3 is 24. 8 times 1 is 8. Add 2 more gives me 10. So we've figured it. 13 times 8 is 104. So the sign should show 104 kilometres. So we know that the 104 kilometres is the same as 65 miles. So do you see that knowledge of knowing that for every 5 miles we drive, that's the same as 8 kilometres? You're going to be using that a lot in your work that you're going to be doing today. Now, in your workbook, you're going to be working on pages 109 to 111. Let me move myself off the challenge. There we go. So we're going to be on 109 to 111. The first 3 questions are all about using that understanding that the conversion between miles and kilometres is for every 5 miles we go 8 kilometres. So really keep that at the back of your mind for those first questions. Then it moves on to a slightly different way of thinking. Now, if this is challenging, questions 1 to 3, work on those first and see how you get on. If you get stuck on 4 and 5, drop me a message and I can give you a little bit of help. Challenges here at the end if you would like to have a go at that once you are finished. Good luck and I'll see you all tomorrow. Bye-bye.